Series 1, The Backwater. The door closed with a quiet, final click, like a verdict. Kostya leaned against the doorframe, unable to take another step into his own apartment. The tick-tock of the grandfather clock marked the seconds of his life. Even, empty, meaningless. Today had been the last straw. Another failed project, the reproachful look from his boss. He looked around, the clean lines of the modern renovation, the designer's sofa. None of it was his. It was a beautiful shell, a cage. His gaze fell on his reflection in the dark TV screen. 35 years old, already graying at the temples. And what do you have to show for it, Kostya? A mortgage, a job that sucks your soul dry? He walked to the window. The evening metropolis buzzed below, and he understood with frightening clarity. He couldn't do it anymore. He was jaded, disillusioned with everything. A burning, physical desire to run tightened his throat. To leave. Far away. As if in a trance, he sat down at the computer. His fingers typed into the search bar. Cheap houses in remote Siberian villages. He scrolled through listings until his eyes caught one. House for sale. Village of OMUT. Edge of the Taiga. Very cheap. The photo showed a tiny, time-blackened cabin, and behind it, a wall of mighty, snow-covered fir trees. OMUT, a remote, absorbing place. Perfect. A quiet, elderly voice answered his call. There was no haggling. A week later, having sold almost everything he owned, Kostya was on a rickety bus leaving the city, with just one backpack and a suitcase. The bus, puffing diesel exhaust, turned around and drove back, leaving Kostya alone on a deserted, snow-covered road. The only sign of civilization was a rusty bus stop with a caved-in roof. Well, that's it. I'm here. But there's no village, he thought with a sudden panic. Suddenly, he caught movement. A prehistoric UAZ Bukanka van slowly crawled from around the bend. The driver was a stocky man in an old quilted jacket. Where are you headed? To the village. OMUT, Kostya replied. The man sighed heavily. Get in. I'll give you a lift. The UAZ started, bouncing over the potholes. Why do you want to go to OMUT? The places here are remote, not for outsiders. Just tired of the city, Kostya replied evasively. The city, at least there are people there. Here, there are different laws. They don't like strangers here. What does he mean? Village xenophobia. Rumors are going around. They say the folks there are different. They don't age, don't get sick, and no one ever leaves. Never. You come here or are born here. That's where you lay your bones. Or you don't. Maybe you should turn back. No, Kostya answered too sharply. Thank you, but I've made up my mind. Rumors. Nonsense. I didn't leave everything behind just to be scared by the first tall tale. The driver sighed heavily and didn't say another word. The village of OMUT greeted him with an oppressive, absolute silence. A few dozen log houses, blackened by time, stood along a single street. No signs of civilization, just smoke from the chimneys. The silence was deafening. The key, left under the mat on the porch, turned with a screech in the lock, and the heavy oak door gave way with difficulty, letting him inside. The first breath hit his lungs not with a smell, but with a freezing, stale cold. The air inside was noticeably colder than outside. God, it's like a fridge in here. Worse. I hope the stove works, or I'll freeze to death, a panicked thought flashed through Kostya's mind. He dropped his backpack on the table and, rubbing his numb fingers, started looking for firewood. The main room was empty. Okay, calm down. Panic won't help. Need to think. Where would they even keep firewood here? Despair began to creep up his throat. His gaze fell on a second, lower door in the corner, behind the stove. He pushed it. The door, swollen from dampness, gave way with a creak. A storage room. Makes sense. There must be something in there. The cold here was even fiercer, but his attention was immediately drawn to something else. A neat stack of firewood. Well, would you look at that? Real treasure. The gold reserve. He laughed inwardly with relief. Thank you, anonymous previous owner. You saved me. He gathered an armful of logs and returned to the main room, closing the door behind him. All right, theory is clear. Small kindling at the bottom, bigger logs on top, need air. Now Professor Kostya will conduct an experiment in making fire. He opened the heavy cast iron stove door. It was dark inside, smelling of cold soot. Some fireplace. I'll have to clean it later. The first attempt ended in nothing. The birch bark just charred and went out. Of course, it can't be that simple. There are always complications. The second attempt too. Burn, damn you. He cursed mentally, feeling the cold starting to win again. Can't I even light a fire? Total failure. He remembered the air vent, opened the small door at the bottom of the stove, struck the lighter again. This time, a thin splinter caught greedily, followed by birch bark igniting with a merry crackle. It worked. Damn, it worked. He almost jumped for joy from a sudden childlike glee. I made fire. He added more splinters, then carefully added smaller logs, watching enchanted as the fire hummed and gained strength. So beautiful. Better than any TV. Hypnotic. No thoughts, just fire. He closed the stove door, leaving it slightly ajar, and crouched before the stove, stretching his frozen hands toward the flames. The first precious warmth beat against his palms. There it is. Real, honest warmth. Not from a radiator someone turned on far away, but something you made yourself. Feel the difference, Kostya. Do you feel it? He couldn't look away from the burning logs. The cold inside the cabin began to slowly retreat. Managed, didn't freeze. Survived the first day. Now I can make some tea. King of the wild, yeah, right. He smirked to himself. But there was pride and a drop of hope in that smirk. The night was restless. He imagined footsteps and sounds, but now in the cold morning light, everything seemed mundane. The stove had cooled, and the cabin was chilly again. Well, day 2. Survived. Now I need to start living, Kostya thought, reluctantly climbing out of his warm sleeping bag.